Today's project is going to be a super quick greeting card or a pocket with an accordion tuck that you can add to your journals. Hello everyone, it's Maddie Azar with Spectrum Art Creations, and today's project is perfect for using your journaling cards and scrap pieces of paper from any of your collections. As an example, I've made this one using plain journaling cards from this Project Life collection pack, which has both the small and the large journaling cards, which makes it perfect for this project. On this one here, we've used a different chipboard piece here in the front. It's a great way to use your chipboard. It opens up right there to reveal a large journaling tag here in the pocket. And then as well, we've added a small journal here and also a journaling bookmark here in the front. So lots of ways that you can configure these differently. And then of course you have your back, which you can add more writing spots, photos, flips, pockets, and then it closes right back up onto itself. Now, you can also use all kinds of other journaling cards like these here or whatever you have in your stash. So the neat thing again is that you can configure this project in many different ways by adding flips and so much more. Now, Graphic 45 has the perfect journaling cards for this project, since most of their collections have the full 12-inch papers with the journaling cards that you can cut out in one simple strip. Now, this video is going to be part of a series. It is a series where we're going to be making stationery that will go into our writing desk station that I've already designed for Graphic 45 using the Portrait of a Lady collection, which is this collection right here. Now, as soon as Graphic 45 releases the video, I'll put a link down below in the description box so that you can actually follow step by step the tutorial and create the writing station with us, okay? But the goal is to use the entire collection that we have right here. We've already finished a writing desk station, and so we have lots of great scraps that we're going to be using. So in the meantime, I am going to be bringing you ideas on how to fill that writing desk with all kinds of fun cards. Or if you want to use them for journals, you can. As you can see, we have a whole lot left. By the way, I love our huge 13 by 14 zipper bags. They just make it fabulous to be able to store your entire collection so that you can work with it and then of course put it away when you are done. I will be sure to put a link down below to those bags. They are fabulous. So without much more ado, let's work on some of these great projects. Let's just get right into it. As you can see, I've kept my journaling cards together, so when I cut my 12 by 12s, I simply cut out the full 12-inch strip across. Now, of course, if yours are cut up, you can always just glue them onto a base. We will also need a piece of paper that is slightly larger and longer than our journaling cards. I'm using a piece from the Alexandra Page here, and I'm going to be cutting that down to fit. In order to create the accordion pull, we're going to need to crease our journaling cards back and forth. So one will go forward, one will go back, and then we'll use our bone folder to burnish down those creases. This is going to give us that accordion finish. Once that step is done, our next step is to create the backing for the accordion fold. So all I am doing is looking at my paper and deciding how big I want the borders to be. Now, keep in mind that if you're going to be using a card, you do need to know the size of your envelope, correct? But in this case, if you're using it just as a tuck, maybe in a journal, then that is completely up to the size of your journal. Now, we do want the same amount of backing or decorative paper showing on the left, the right, and the bottom. On the upper part, however, we're going to be giving it a little bit more decorative paper, more of a border. And the reason for that is because we are going to be using that to slide our large journaling tag in and out. So we want a little bit more room there up at the top. So again, we're keeping that word beauty up there. Absolutely love that. And that's going to give me also a taller border at the top. So left, right, and bottom will be the same, but the top will have more room. Once we're happy with the size of our backing, it is time to start thinking about our base. In my case, I am making stationery, so I'm going to need a card base. I am using a cream colored cardstock. It's just a regular A4 size, which I'm going to be folding in half. This is going to give me my card base. I am going to burnish that down really well. And I know that I am using an envelope, and my envelope is going to be A5 by 7. So I am going to cut my base down to fit, but I am not going to throw away the scrap piece of paper that is left from when I cut my card base. So keep your scraps because we're going to need those later. So now with our card base all cut and it fits perfect, and we have our backing panel ready and it fits perfect as well, and so does the accordion little flip out that we have ready to go. We know that it's all going to fit perfectly. It is time to start thinking, what are we going to put inside of that pocket? So, looking through my scraps, I am going to find a large enough piece of paper that is going to make a nice wide tag that I could use to journal as well. And here we found a perfect coordinating piece. Of course, it's nice to work with collections because they are already coordinated for us. This one has great greens and pinks and creams, and this piece of paper is going to be perfect for bringing all of those colors together. All of the pieces that I'm going to be using for this project, I am going to be distressing in 2 different colors, a brown to add a vintage edge, and then a black to finish off that white core edging on the sides. Now, of course, distressing is always optional. Some people love to distress, others don't. I am one that, of course, always distresses my projects. I just feel that they're not finished until I distress. So to distress or not to distress, that is the question, and I leave that completely up to you. Now, since the accordion piece is going to be a large pocket, we are only going to add adhesive on 3 of the sides, left, right, and bottom. Now remember, we are only adding adhesive to the back of the large journaling card, not the other 2, not the ones that are the accordion. Those get no adhesive whatsoever. Another thing not to forget is that, like we had discussed, the right, the left, and the bottom are going to have a narrow border, where the top is going to have a wider border, and it's going to show more of that decorative backing paper. So be sure to center left and right, but do not center it top and bottom. Now with the accordion glued onto the base, the decorative base, we have more choices to make depending on what it is that you're trying to use your project for. In my case, I am going to be gluing mine directly onto my card base fully. However, you have options. You can glue it once again on 3 sides and leave a pocket at the top. You can also glue it on the other 3 sides and leave a pocket on the right or on the left. So you can also make it into a flip, because remember, we are using double-sided gorgeous paper. So there's a lot of options that you could add on from here depending on what you're using your project for. In my case, I am going to be making it stationary, so for writing purposes, and I don't want it to get too bulky because it needs to go into an envelope, and I also don't want it to be too bulky in case it needs to go through the mail system. Now unfortunately my glue was acting up today, so I ended up bringing out my score tape and using some of that to kind of help my glue. I do not know why. I think it's got some lumps in there, so I'm going to have to probably end up cleaning it out, you know, the bottle, and trying to figure out what is happening inside of my bottle or my nozzle. But that's okay, because score tape came to the rescue, and it was super strong and sticky. So I actually ended up deciding to do a combination of both my glue as well as the score tape. Luckily, as I kept using the glue, it actually kind of cleared itself up. But I used my burnishing tool to, my bone folder, to burnish that down, of course, and then my pick to remove the backing. And like I mentioned, I did add a little bit of additional glue. I always just love using liquid adhesive just to ensure that nothing is going to later on lose its adhesion and end up causing problems or having to re-glue it. So once I was done with that, it was time to center it on the front of our card base. And now it's time to think about our large journaling tag again. So we are going to bring back that gorgeous piece of paper, and we are going to cut it to fit into the journaling card pocket. But remember, we're going to make it fit left and right, but we're going to give it a little bit more height. Okay, so measure out your pocket, look at the width, and then of course when it comes to the height, give it a little bit more, maybe 1/4 of an inch, maybe half an inch. You decide depending on what you're using your project for. So you want it to be slightly taller than your accordion front. That is the goal, to have it just stick out just slightly above that card. Now again, I am writing down measurements, but yours might be completely different from mine. So, and of course, even how you glued it down, even if you're using the same collection, the width and the height will also vary depending upon how much adhesive you used around the edges of your accordion piece. So just kind of measure it out. I always give it a little bit extra because it's easier to take off, right, a sliver than it is to actually miscut the piece altogether and then have it not worked. So as you can see here, it's a little too tight. So I'm going to take it back and I'm going to trim it down just a notch. And here we now have the perfect fit as far as width is concerned. Now, of course, we got to check out the height, especially if you're putting it in an envelope. So you want to make sure that it closes comfortably, which in our case it does, even though, as you can see, the journaling card is, or the journaling tag, excuse me, is taller than our card base. It's still going to work just perfect. Now I'm going to be cutting off the corners. I'm going to use my chomper, my corner chomper, to create tag edges on the top left and right side of my card. Now I started with the small one just to see how it looks. Again, remember, we can always take off more, but we cannot put it back. So I start with the small one, and if I don't like it, which in this case I didn't think it was enough, I am going to go with the larger angle of the two, and that one worked out a lot better. So with those corners done, it is starting to look more like a nice wide tag. This dressing done, we take a look and see how it looks once it's in that pocket, and it looks great. The colors all mix well together. It is glued in the right direction. I have glued stuff upside down before, so I do always check. And now we are going to move on to the next step. We are going to be adding an eyelet. Now, I love using my zero ruler. Not this one necessarily. Actually, this is the Tim Holtz one. I like using this other one better because it has 1/8 and 1/16, which give me a much more accurate and better centering. Now, I call it the zero ruler. I don't know if it's really called that, and we carry both in store, but as you can see in the center there, it's got a 0. And then the measurements go left and right as well. It has a regular ruler at the top, of course, with the 1/8 and the 1/16, but on the bottom, on the other side, it's got the 0 in the center, and then the numbers start going out towards left and right in increments. They increase, which is really neat because then you just use your 0 almost like a level, and you put that in the center, and then you're able to look at your sides and get it down to like a 1/16 of an inch precise, which I love because I don't know about you guys, but I am really not good with measurements and rulers and dividing and, you know, converting fractions into, no. So I rather find a ruler, a great tool that will help me, and I'll put the link down below as well in case you are interested in that ruler. I highly recommend it, especially if you struggle with measurements like I do and just want to get to the fun part versus trying to do all that math. Now my center ended up on 2 5/8. So again, I'm just putting that 0 in the center, and then 2 5/8 on my left and 2 5/8 on my right, and that gives me perfect positioning. I did put my journaling tag back in the pocket, and you notice that when I had originally marked, it was going to be too low. The eyelet was going to be, you know, basically touching the pocket. So make sure you do put your journaling tag back in to adjust the height of your eyelet. Using our Crop-A-Dile, we're going to punch a hole into our tag. Now we're going to be adding a really neat feature on to this tag as well, in addition to the eyelet, of course. But more on that later. We will come back to that. So for now, let's just punch the hole and set that off to the side. Now remember that scrap piece of paper from the card base, the ivory cardstock piece that I said don't throw that away? We're going to bring that back now, and we're going to use it because we do not want to waste anything. And we're going to use it in order to make a really cute, tall journaling bookmark. First, cut it down to the right height, and then we're going to be using our Spectrum Art Creations whale tail and reinforcer die cutting set, and we're going to cut out a set of hole reinforcers from the remaining scraps that we got from the height. Now this die set is amazing. It contains 3 different sizes of the whale tail tabs, plus a super cool hole reinforcer, and it doesn't just include one of each size, you get multiples. So you get 3 large, 3 medium and 3 small whale tails, and then a bunch of the super cool vintage looking hole reinforcers that you usually see like in the old tags or maybe in the Timmy tags. So I've punched out 2 of those reinforcers from the bottom of what was left over from when I trimmed that tall journaling bookmark. And so, see, that's where we kind of just cut the height, we cut the bottom, and now I have those extra pieces to use in order to punch out the cool hole reinforcers. Again, here are those whale tails in large, medium, and small, and it all comes in one pack. I will put the link down below because honestly, it is a fantastic die set and the price is amazing. I know I paid about $70 for my Stampin' Up! Whale Tail Punch years ago, and I know that they are super expensive, but this set is a fraction of the cost, and I mean a fraction, and you get all kinds of different sizes and multiples of each, and yeah, so it's a really great one to have. So I'll link that down below for you guys. But going back to our project, we have now the hole reinforcers that we're going to be adhering, but before we do that, of course, we're going to be distressing those first, and then we will glue them down, and finally we will insert our eyelets. Now this project is one that can be adapted in so many ways. I would love if you guys would share with us if you're going to be making one and to see your creations. What changes have you made? If you've adapted it to add some flips, some tucks, some additional working pieces, it would just be great to see that. And by the way, if you ever want to share any creations or you want to find a great place to just hang out with like-minded artists, make sure that you guys check out our Facebook group. It is a fantastic, very warm and welcoming group to be in. You can find us in Facebook under Spectrum Art Creations Friends, and you can also, of course, find the link down below in the description box. And now it's time to insert our eyelet. I'm going to be using a bronze color eyelet to kind of go with that whole vintage feel that we have going on. I'm going to have the pink side facing out towards the front of the card. And now with the cool hole reinforcer at the top, it just really finishes it off. It makes it look super clean and just gives it a little bit extra, not only as a reinforcer, but of course as an aesthetic finish. Okay, our large tag is done, with the exception, of course, if you want to go back and add maybe some lace up at the top or maybe some seam binding, but it's time to focus on the little tall bookmark, journaling bookmark that we're going to be creating. So using our scraps again, we're going to cut down to create a cover mat for the journaling bookmark. A word of caution here. Again, remember to measure the height of your bookmark, because you want to make sure that if you're using it in an envelope that it actually fits and it's going to close. I am going to find a small piece of paper to just use it on the front cover. However, if you want to do the back cover as well, that is a perfect way to also use your scraps, and you can even add some of it on the inside, so you can decorate it all the way around if you so prefer. And bringing back the Spectrum Whale Tail and Reinforcer die cut set, I'm going to find the smallest of all of the whale tail tabs, and here I have some in pouch always just to kind of use as a gauge, just to kind of see the sizing for the project. I'm not going to be using this black one. I just use them again just as a template. So yes, now that I know that I'm going to be using the smallest one of those, I am going to go back and from just a piece of scratch tea dyed paper. I mean, this is just paper that I tea dyed, cardstock that I've tea dyed, and I have this scrap piece left. I'm going to use the smallest of those whale tails and go and cut out a tab for this cute little bookmark. And here is our cutie patootie whale tail mini tab, which of course we're going to distress after we fold it in half. Look how adorable that is, just stinking cute. We're going to fold it in half, we're going to distress it, and then we are going to adhere it onto a bookmark. Before we do that though, we are going to make sure that we also distress the panel for the bookmark as well as the bookmark itself. And we are going to be creating a crease. So with those pieces all set and ready to go, we're going to burnish down really well the top of our bookmark, and then we're going to adhere that front panel. Now, once we are done with that, we need to make sure that we have enough room for our mini whale tail tab. That's going to be very important. You want to do that before you get to the next step, which is going to be to burnish or to create, excuse me, a crease on that front. So size up where your whale tail is going to be, kind of mark it maybe with a pencil. And then we're going to bring in our ball stylus to create a score for where we're going to be creasing the front panel. You only need it on the front panel. Again, using your ball stylus, you're going to create that crease. And now we have a place where we can crease that little bookmark so we can journal inside of it, and we still have enough room for the whale tail to attach to the front. I am distressing also that little crease just to give it a little bit more emphasis, and it's time to glue down our little cute whale tail to the front. Now, if you wanted to add paper to this, you also perfectly could, and you can do that before you actually glue down the inside part of this, which we're going to be doing here next. So at this point, if you want to add a couple of sheets of paper in there, you can, and then you can glue it down just like I'm doing here and finish closing it off, or maybe even use a little staple, one of the tiny attacher staples, and then hide it with your whale tail as well as once you glue it down at the top. But now this will fold perfectly up and still give us a little bookmark that we can journal or take notes into. It is time for our next step, and that step is to create a closing latch. And the easiest way to do this is to add also some dimension by using chipboard. This collection and most of the deluxe collector's editions come with chipboard included, which is great because again, it's all coordinating. So in order to do that, I'm going to look through my pieces and see, what speaks to me. So go through your chipboard, see what you have, and see what piece speaks to you. Now, once you find that piece that you love and that you know is going to be the one that's going to make your project that much more special, what you want to do is you want to adhere it. But you don't want to glue it all the way. You want to leave about 1/8 of an inch left without any glue. So say maybe 95% of it, no, 95% of it will be glued down, and that other little 1/8 of an inch is not going to be, is going to have no adhesive at all, because that's what's going to act as our latch, as our closing mechanism. That's what's going to hold down the accordion piece. So again, you want to double check and make sure that it fits perfectly and it's not going to be too bulky. If it is too bulky, you can always make it less bulky. You can remove dimension from your chipboard by removing plies. It is multiple plies of paper that are actually glued together. That's the way that chipboard works. So if you want to remove some dimension, simply grab your X-Acto knife and carefully, very carefully, or a pair of scissors, and very gently and carefully, not to cut yourself, pull back layers of the chipboard from the back. But in this case, it fits perfectly into my envelope, so no worries there. I'm going to glue it down, with the exception, as I mentioned, of that 1/8 of an inch, and we have our perfect closing mechanism. Now, I think that our mini whale tail that's on top of our journaling bookmark needs a little something. So I'm going to bring in the perfect little embellishment piece from the chipboard pieces. It is a floral piece, and it is this cute little, almost like round little jewel with a flower. It just looks so stinking adorable. Gonna distress that, and we're going to adhere it to the top of the whale tail up there, and that's also going to make grabbing that tab even easier. And here we have our completed project. Super simple, super quick to make, and so much fun, very versatile. There's so many different configurations that can be made, and all those scraps are going now to great use. We hope that you guys have enjoyed it and that you've crafted along. We'd love to hear some feedback from you. Are you going to be trying it? What kinds of configurations and changes and modifications will you make? Are you going to use it as a card and stationery, maybe to send to someone? Or are you going to be using it inside of your junk journals or your journals or something else? Either way, we'd love to hear from you. And please don't forget to leave a thumbs up and a comment if you've enjoyed. And don't forget, this is just the beginning. It is part of a series that is going to have a lot more projects like this. It is time to tuck this away into our writing desk station. Stay tuned for that video as well. Thank you for joining us today in the Spectrum Art Creation Studio. We hope to see you all back here very, very soon. A big warm hug to you all from sunny Florida. Bye!